We can't say the future without AI. I mean, there's no way around it. 50% of workers now believe AI is going to improve their experience. When I come into the meeting room, I need a way to incorporate my AI with what's going on in the meeting. It's almost a bring your own AI type of a concept. Most of what we do in our day-to-day is going to change significantly.
Hear the latest AV trends and predictions in this episode of Crestron's Smarter Spaces podcast on your preferred podcast platform.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of AV Career Masterminds. As I am trying to focus on this year in 2025 is talking to people who are transitioning and looking for a career change or looking for something new. So I am so excited to have someone on today that we are kind of in that transition. So Josh, if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little about who you are, what you've done, and then we'll kind of get into finding out what you're looking for.
My name's Joshua Bloom. I've been in AV for about 20 years now, going on 21, and basically just going through the motions, trying to find my perfect fit, and trying to work better on learning how to do the designs a lot more. So
we met, and we had never met before, but we met a couple weeks ago in Tampa at a Sennheiser event. And so you were there and explained to me kind of where you are in your transition. And so I love networking events like that and small events like that. So what was a reason for you to get there? Like, what was it, because they were offering credit? Was it because there was manufacturers, just because it was local? Like, what was your driving factor for attending that?
It was a combination of, one, it was local. And two, I had made friends with a couple of people at Sennheiser from when I worked in education years ago. And they sent me the invite, and I was like, I had the time, I can go to it. Didn't necessarily care as far as the CTS credits, because as I explained to you in our meetup, I unfortunately don't have my CTS yet. So that kind of doesn't help me much. But it was more, one, to further my education, see what technology's coming out now, how it can apply for audiovisual be it in commercial, education, or whatnot, and then just see what people were there that I may not have met just by being out in the field, and just seeing what I could find while I was out there.
Yeah. So, and I love that, like, right? Because the big thing I'm a big proponent of for people, and I push this and I say this a lot, is if an event like that is within driving distance for you and you have the ability to go, right? It's amazing who you can meet and who you can talk to, right? I came all the way over from Miami, right? Again, I've got some business and things I can do with Sennheiser and some of the people that were there. But you and I had an opportunity to meet. And if I wouldn't have gotten in the car to go, you and I wouldn't have had this opportunity. So as we were talking and you were saying, about not having your CTS, and you talked about having all of your certifications. And when you sent me over your resume, you have a list.
One of the people that was there from QSC turned around and said he's surprised that basically I don't have a binder because of my certifications.
But and I'm looking at this, and there are Crestron certifications. You have Audinate Dante certifications. You have some Extron. You have Atlona. So what is important? Why are those important to you? Why is it important for you to get those?
Originally, as I said, I came from education, and we, at the time, were a Crestron school. So that's where the Crestron came in. I was doing video conference classrooms. It was a program where students from Pinellas County could stay in Pinellas County, but they would get their education from colleges that were actually outside of the state. so they would be students of, say, a school in Chicago, but they would still be in Pinellas County. It was all being done through video conference. And so one of the things we had for DSPs at the time was symmetrics. So to better understand how I could support the symmetrics, because I was basically the system tech for like 13 campuses, I went and got the certification for symmetrics so I could understand it better. When I transitioned out of education and went into corporate, one of the requirements that company needed to be able to even sell the stuff for Atlona was Atlona. So I mad dashed and got as much of the training for that, so that way we could turn around and sell Atlona equipment. So a lot of times when I was getting these certs, it was because it was a requirement based off of what I was doing at the time. And then it never hurts to have that education. Like, I was talking to a company that was local for possibly as a lead install tech yesterday. And they admitted, yes, I've got a lot of certification in education, even though they are predominantly residential while mine's corporate. Then at least that education I got could technically transition to residential, because at least I'd have the understanding of like how things interconnect. Would it help me necessarily in the residential as far as the programming, because they were doing Control 4? Maybe not, but at least it'd give me a backbone to understand what I was taking for the education.
Exactly. And so now, with all of these certifications that you're having, are you finding that it's helping you now look for a new chapter in your career, or is it not coming up in conversations as much?
No, I've been seeing where the people that interview me have been saying that, one, they're surprised to have someone that has all that knowledge. But then when I'm out, if for some reason I do a field job, it would help in understanding how the many different flavors that are out there can interconnect. And then if I'm going into the design part of the field, then it would help me also, again, understand how they can interconnect, what would be the best part. My bachelor's degree is in technology management, and one of those courses that was in there was lean manufacturing. So when I design rooms, I've seen rooms, especially in education, where there's more parts that are needed. So I try to streamline the system to do what's needed, but don't blow the project up.
Right.
Turn around and only have what you need to get the program working.
Right. You know, as we were talking, which is, I think, is beneficial, because with education, we all know in whether it's K through 12 or whether it's higher ed education, you know, budget is not there. They have to maximize what they're doing with a small dollar amount. So being able to, as I use the word, value engineer, right, the system to ensure that you're meeting the needs of all of your customers, and that from an educational standpoint, your customer is going to be the professors and the students, right, to get everything. So being able to do that, I think, is extremely beneficial, and have that understanding so that you could spread out your dollars. Now, and I'm not discrediting CTS or anything at all. I don't want to think that, but where are you in your feeling of the CTS having that versus looking for that position? Is it the positions you're looking for are requiring the CTS and they're not acknowledging all the certs, or where is that? How do you feel about that?
So what I've been coming across is that there's been a lot, because the places I've been looking to help me try to find a new position is LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor. And in those three, a lot of the jobs are saying that it would be preferred to have a CTS or CTS-I, I would like to get more into design, so they've been asking for the CTS-D. But a lot of the positions are turning around and just saying it's preferred but not necessarily required. Unfortunately, it also depends on where in the corporate you're going, because if you go for governmental work, they require the CTS-D. At least preferably a CTS, but considering security and stuff like that, they want to turn around and have the CTS-D. Biggest problem is the $500 to take the exam. And then I've also, in my career between being a student and just taking exams elsewhere, because like I've gotten an associate of science in network engineering. I can't pass the Cisco certification for the life of me. I cannot take tests. And so if there's a test that is heavily math, yes, I'm in the tech field. I can't do math worth a darn. And I've actually got a documented math disability, which unfortunately hurts me on tests. So to push the CTS makes it hard. But the nice thing is a lot of the positions I've been applying for, I make sure ahead of time. I tell everybody, sorry, I don't have my CTS, but they acknowledge, yes, but you got the experience because you've got all these certs.
So let's back up 1 second. And you don't have to get far into this if you choose not to, but you just said that you have a documented math disability. Have you ever, let's just say the CTS exam, you did not have to pay for it, right? Let's just say stars align, things happen, and you didn't have to worry about it. Have you ever reached out to a VIXA, or do you know if a VIXA has anything for test taking for things like that? Because there are lots of people out there. I'm a former teacher, and there are lots of people out there in the world that are on an IEP plan, a 504 plan, where they need those type of accommodations when they go to take a test. I am like you. I have test anxiety. When I had to take, I was a former math teacher. So when I had to take my math exam 4 times, because when I sat there and I looked at the problem, I couldn't remember how to do it as I was sitting taking the test. I walked out of the exam and I could tell you exactly how to do it.
So I haven't checked for the VIXA yet on that one. I did with, I think it was Pearson is the one that does the Cisco certification. And like I gave them a list of what accommodations the college gave me as a student with learning disability. And they didn't accept it. They were like, no, you need to have documentation from a doctor. And I'm like, and they wanted me to actually turn it into Pearson. And I was like, okay, let me see if I get this right. You're not a medical institution. You want access to my medical records. Here's a list of stuff from a college, which does technically have the right to get access to it. And you won't accept the same accommodations they give me. Oh, by the way, my father was one of the first federally trained advocates for the students with learning disabilities. You really want to try this? So I basically ended up having to take the test without any accommodations, and I just couldn't pass the test. And it's gotten to the point right now where it's just, I've tried to do as many certifications to help me in the work that I do. And then when I get to the point of being able to actually sign up for the exam, then I'll have to go fight a VIXA to turn around and see how well they'll work with me. Because unfortunately, most of my documentation I haven't necessarily kept, because one of the biggest problems in college is that they require you to get retested every 2 years. I've been out of school since 2017. So I don't have any current documentation.
And that's something as an adult, you should be able to say, because in your work balance now, it's different than when you're a student, right? You now have the ability in your everyday work, if you don't know the answer or don't know how to do something, well, we have the internet.
You can look it up.
Exactly. You can look it up. You're not required to memorize it. You're required to use the tools that you have at your fingertips. In college, yes, and as students, we know we want them to learn, we want them to understand, we want them to try and engage, right? And I completely understand that as a former educator. But then when you get out into the real workforce, and depending on what you're doing, you're constantly learning. And in AV and IT, whatever you learn today is probably going to be gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
So to be able to do all of this over and over and over again, right? To learn it and try to have it memorized. I mean, I don't I help my son with his math, and I still have to reteach myself things because I'm not utilizing it every day. So I think for those, and not to sidetrack yet, but I think for those that are out there that are watching and that are listening, if you are a company, if you are an organization, if you are requiring your employees to take tests and someone is coming to you telling you that they need some accommodations, please listen. Like this is things that are happening and going on in the world. And to Josh, there should be some things, and I will be your biggest advocate to help get some of those things for you if we need to, and reach out to people. But so moving on a little bit, so you have all of these certifications, you're out there looking. What are you looking for? What is the dream job that you would love to have?
The dream job for me right now, since I've done, when I was in education, I did that for almost 19 years. Mm-hmm. And I was doing, on my own, I was doing repair of classrooms. I was doing the install of classrooms. I was doing some of the reprogramming. I was also doing the designs. But on all of that, I was self-taught.
Right.
Which in AV is not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
You just don't always know all the codes,
right,
as far as building codes and OSHA and stuff like that. And then for the design work, it was again self-taught. So I learned on Visio originally.
Okay, yeah.
But the Visio, the way I was learned how to do it, was basically a glorified napkin sketch. It was not building blocks or anything like that. I then switched to AV Snap. The recent job I was with, I was doing StarDraw, which I actually enjoyed StarDraw. I could not teach AutoCAD to me worth of beans on my own. Most jobs that are out in the industry right now are asking for either AutoCAD or Revit.
Okay.
And I would like to find a position where I can sit there and just design. I love doing that, just doing the research, finding out how things can interconnect and make sure everything is there for what the tech needs. So that's basically where I would like to go. I would like to go into the design.
So you want to be able to design the spaces. You want to be able to be given the bill of material and design it and have the drawings for it. Am I understanding that right?
Yes. I mean, I don't have a problem doing from the scratch, doing the bill of materials. But I also wouldn't, like when I was doing the stuff in education, I was doing all the above. I would actually do the design, write out the bill of materials, send it out to the vendors. And of course, since I was in higher ed, had to do the 3 quotes. So I was also making sure that when the vendors came back, everything was apples to apples, oranges to oranges. So yeah, that's where I'd like to go. Basically, take the bill of materials, be the system engineer, and build it, help the customers if they need troubleshooting. Basically, not necessarily be out in the field all the time, just basically be there as a support. I mean, I did desktop support for, let's see, as I said, 18 years, 9 months. So I did desktop support for maybe 6 of it. So I was doing a lot of the help desk and helping the students or the teachers learning how to use the classrooms.
So are you open to going back into the education space, the higher ed space?
I'm not against it. I am a divorced father, and I have to be there for my son because the way the decree was is I'm responsible for his travel, so I also have to pretty much stay in Tampa as much as possible. So going to education would make it a little easier to stay in one spot. And then if it's one of like the big schools like FSU, USF, which one am I missing? UF. Sorry, I'm a Knowles fan, not a Gators fan.
That's all right.
So yeah, I wouldn't mind going back into education. I would just hopefully prefer it was one of the bigger schools, just because the one I worked for was technically a junior college originally, and even though they became a 4-year school halfway through my education, they were still paid at the junior college level, so the pay wasn't great.
Right. Well, and nowadays I think and trust me, and I live in South Florida, so I completely understand cost of living here in Florida is insanely crazy, right? And and to being able to, support a family and do all of that. So I completely understand that. So if we look at it, so education is not completely out of the realm. What about going back or working with and as I use the terms interchangeably, integrator reseller that's doing AVIT installations? Is that something that?
Yeah, I'm pretty much open to anything right now. The last time I was in a break, it was for 2 months, so I haven't rebuilt my finances from that one yet, so I would prefer not to go that long again. So, I mean, I've told my wife if I need to, just so that way I'd have money coming in, I'd break a promise to myself that I made years ago, and I'd go back to fast food. And I really don't want to do that.
Listen, hey, we're all at this point. There are all things that we could do, and that we say we don't ever want to do. But when you want to support, trust me, I completely understand that. I have been through that myself.
Yeah.
So. The thing that I find very interesting, Josh, is your openness, right? And your willingness to say, I don't know, but I want to learn, and I'm willing to learn.
Yes.
That you don't find with adults very much, right? Because usually as an adult, we get very set in our ways.
Yeah. And I guess it goes back to my education, because when I was working on my original associate's degree, when I did my AA before my bachelor's, I was doing my first degree was AA early education.
Okay.
And then while I was doing that, I was also working on a certificate as a computer network support technician. When I was working on my bachelor's, I was also doing a certificate for digital media video production. So I have no problem learning. And I also know, especially with me being self-taught and being an AV, and as you said, technology changes way too fast. If you're not willing to learn, you can't keep up with what's happening in the industry.
Right.
Being stuck in your ways is not going to get you anywhere.
No, it's not. And I think we are starting to see some of that in the industry as people are getting older. That age group of us in the industry is above that 45 mark, and some of us, and I'm going to say it that way, are very set, in our ways, and not wanting to make any type of change. So it's great that you want to be able to learn. You want to understand the ever evolving, changing technology that's going on in the industry. So I know that it is several months away, and we are hoping that you are working somewhere by then. But with Infocom being in Orlando this year, is that something that you're planning on attending to, and you want to be able to go? I mean, if the stars align, I always like to work in hypotheticals.
So the very first Infocom that I went to, I would say was 2010, I think it was. I'd have to backtrack my emails to find that one out. But I've never made it to the Vegas one. Since I was working in education, they wouldn't send me. So I've always tried to go to the Orlando one, and I don't think I've missed a year since. To put it into another term of how dedicated I am to try to go to the Orlando one. Last time it was here, obviously that was 2 years ago. I had just started working in corporate, and I was invited to go for hooking up with some meetings with some of the vendors that company used. And I was on a cane because I was in the pool the night before with my son playing water volleyball and landed wrong, and I was walking that floor with a broken toe.
My goodness, that is dedication.
I was in so much pain when I got home.
Oh, that's dedication. Oh, I don't think I would do it.
Normally when I go to Infocom, I try to get out there Tuesday afternoon, so that way I'm out there all day, all of the days for the exhibit floor, because you can't walk that floor in one day and get everything. So I usually try to break it up into days. So usually I'll hit like displays and signage the first day, audio the second, and then the third day would be basically, depending on how the floor is broken up. Right. Then I would do like the UVC or just video in general and programming on the third day.
Yeah. So then, have you ever gone and had the ability to attend any of the educational sessions and different sessions that they offer, or are you just going for the?
Not as of yet. Normally, because I was set in a position at the time, I hadn't gone for the most part. Most of the time I went, it was in my education days, and as you said, education doesn't pay very well, so they wouldn't pay for me to take any of the classes. So I would just go out to the floor to learn what was out there, because near the end of me working in education, we were trying to, especially right around COVID, we were trying to upgrade the classrooms because some of the rooms that we were upgrading, they were like 15 years old. They were still using BNC and using VCRs in some of the rooms. Yeah. So 2021, they had started the upgrade process. And by the end of 2022, we standardized all 435 classrooms. Wow. We literally hired Howard Technologies, and they subsourced to different companies in the area, and we turned around and hit a campus at a time and just upgraded the rooms to make them all standardized. Because, as I said, there were some rooms that they were more current, and other rooms that they we were dusting off the cobwebs when we were pulling apart that equipment.
I'm sure. And I'm sure there were people that were installing this and taking that equipment out going, we don't even know what some of this stuff is, because that has happened to me. But
yeah, we had a few people that were like that. I mean, one of the companies that helped install it. So they were like, wait, you guys are still using this? Yeah. But yeah, so for the most part, me going to Infocom was always just learning what the technology was coming out. I've always been interested in taking the education route, especially at this point. Local rep for Crestron has been pushing for me to try to finish as many of the tracks as possible for Crestron. Yeah. And I've at least finished the designer track. So he's been trying to push for me to go for the Crestron Masters for at least the design.
Awesome. Yeah.
So I'm obviously not going to go all the way to Spain for it. So I'm waiting for when it's in Orlando.
Yes, exactly. So, well, I mean, you have the ability to go pretty far, I think, with what you want to do. And I am excited to see where this is going to go for you and how we can help. Because like I said, looking at your resume and seeing all of the certifications that are there, I think that speaks volumes. And like you said, I feel I am not discrediting the CTS at all. I think it is amazing, but I also think the certifications and being able to hone in on a manufacturer or a product and understanding what it does is amazing. Like, I think that's just
Yeah.
phenomenal that you're taking the time to do that.
Yeah. So when we were doing the upgrades for those classrooms, one of the lead techs for Howard Technologies was in the process of taking his CTS.
Mm-hmm.
And he literally went to the CTS classes, and the instructor literally told him then that because he had been in the industry for so long, he was destined to fail the first time.
That's what I've heard.
And the instructor literally told him it's because when you take the classes and you take the exam, they quiz you on exactly what is on the exam. Unfortunately, everybody knows things don't always work out the way you want it to. So when you're doing installs, there's a totally different way to install it than what's on the exam,
Right.
because it all depends on the space you're installing it
Exactly.
to. So unfortunately, anybody that's been in the industry for a while and then takes the CTS, they usually don't pass because they're set. Okay, this is how we've installed it, and it's not the way that Avixa wants you to do it.
Correct. Right. And that's the whole thing is there are so many different ways to do all of this based on the scenario you're in, based on your customer, based on all of that. And yes, there are the Infocom Avixa standards that we wish every organization was following. We know that is not true, because it's just like people are people, and we're all different. So but I hope that we can help figure out how to ensure that accommodations potentially could be made. I think that is very important if that's not already being handled by Avixa. I think that is something that should be able to be out there, and we can figure out how to help get you through that process at some point. But Josh, I'm excited to see where this can hopefully go for you. I think you are going to be amazing in whatever aspect you do. So anybody that's listening out there, make sure you reach out to Josh. And Josh, where can we find you?
So I'm on a lot of the social media. Like, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. As far as for reaching out to me when it comes to a job or any help you guys may need, you can actually find me on LinkedIn. I'm under Joshua Bloom, and then look for DMCE. There's a few more letters after that, but that's the easiest one to find me.
And so they can just message you there? Is that the best way you would like them and connect with you on LinkedIn?
I have LinkedIn on my phones and on my iPad, so even if I am not actually on my computer, you can still get a hold of me, and I'm usually on my phone a lot, unfortunately, right now. So yeah, that's the easiest way to get a hold of me and the fastest way.
Awesome. Well, I think as everybody, like I said, as everybody's listening, there is definitely something here with Josh that I think you're going to find that you can't find in a lot of other people, being the fact that he still wants to be able to learn. He has all of these certifications and he wants to be your designer. That's amazing. So whether you are AV, whether you are IT, whether you are corporate and you need somebody, remember that AVIT is not just in our little part of the world that we think. Every company and organization has some type of AV department. So as everybody's listening, thank you, Josh, for being on. And you are definitely a fit for when I say we are all more than words on a resume, because in looking, like I said, at yours, it's hard to get everything that you have done on that 2 pages.
Yeah, as I explained to you when we met up the other week, last year I had somebody that pretty much nailed me down to the easiest equation, and you guys will see it on my LinkedIn. AV Swiss Army knife, because I know just enough about anything to get through.
Well, that is amazing. Well, thank you, Josh. And for everybody that is out there listening, thank you for listening and supporting AV Career Masterminds. Make sure to take a look at all of the other podcasts that are available from AVNation Media. And if you are watching or listening, make sure you hit that subscribe. We'd love to connect with you. Thanks.
the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.